Rastafari began in or around the 1930s with the coronation of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I in Ethiopia. His name before the coronation was Rastafari, and his followers, where the faith began, or the movement started in Jamaica, were known as Rastafarians. And they were seen as a very, at that time, antisocial people, as it were, because they used dreadlocks, they smoked the holy herb, they kept to themselves, and they had this strange belief that the emperor was the returned Christ, the trigger for salvation of black people worldwide. So it was a very otherworldly kind of cult, if you could describe it as that, in that time. Its leadership included people like Leonard Percival Howell, who had traveled the world as a seaman and come back to Jamaica in the early 1930s and promulgated this idea of Rastafari, Emperor Haile Selassie I, being God and King as revealed through the scriptures. There was Howell, then there was his deputy called Hines, there was Hibbert, there was Dunkley, and these were Rastafari scholars, not in an academic sense, but people who had read the Bible and come up with this answer to the dilemma of being in the diaspora, taken away from Africa, going through a period of enslavement, and looking for not just independence, but redemption, being able to become whole again, being able to be what we were before we were taken away, and finding a way through Ethiopianism to recover that sense of total self, and more than that, that sense of divinity and godliness. And this was where the roots of the modern day Rastafari faith or movement came about.
Rule Britannia. Britannia rule the waves. Them bring I black people down here in England for work we as slaves again. Not to dread, we're living in a concrete jungle. Not to dread, we're living in a concrete jungle.
Rastafari is our strength. Rastafari is our redeemer. Without life of Rastafari, I don't know what other life I would be living today.
You know, so Rastafari is nothing too mystical about it, in a sense. You know what I mean? It's just a natural way of life by living up. You know, man say live up. Yeah, you live up right.
The liberty, it has to do with how you conduct yourself. It has to do with how you think. It has to do with your diet. It has to do with the way you treat your fellow human beings and our brothers and sisters.
I mean, Babylon can be found anywhere, but Babylon means confusion, and we call England Babylon because it's one of the great negative mothers that fights against African truth and right.
As a scriptural man, the word Babylon is coming from the scriptures, and it represented a people who were not the kindest or the most righteous people.
For example, they will have different types of food that they eat, maybe like genetically modified. They have a different concept of what marriage is, and in Rastafari we think one man to one woman, that constitutes a marriage. So just all the things that are I would say evil, wicked, which is an abundance in Babylon, like all the materialism and all the exploitation and all the white supremacy.
Babylon can rightly be ascribed to Britain and along with the other colonial powers who have captured the righteous against their will and put them into bondage for centuries. So when we're really talking about Babylon, it's not just a person or an individual. Babylon is really a state of mind.
You know, we're here to stand up on the land and say we were actually indigenous to the whole earth first, and we're going to reset the order back to its original way. So that's why we're here, and we will not be moved. And slowly but surely, as we can all know in these times, that the earth is changing for the better.
Her Majesty teaches that there is good and bad in everything, you know, right? So coming here, really, the negative is that it's like an indoor life, you know, more than anything else. Like you get claustrophobic still with the system. And nature is like, we used to be more living, you know, from nature, surviving by natural livity, you know, natural things of the earth, roots. We could go into the hills and, you know, get our own roots, our own medicine. We could pick things fresh. We could do our own cultivation and live by our own works and hands. You know, in this country you can't, you know.
Living in this environment, we are melanated people. My body needs the sunshine. My children need to learn how an orange grow, how pineapple grow, how to climb tree. We need to become one with nature. We need to learn our original customs. We can't learn this in this environment. This is a country that we are seen as immigrants. We face racism. We don't fit in. This is not my country. So it has a detrimental effect, not only to me, but to my generation and the upcoming youths.
Back in the days, Rastafarian was really looked on as some black art man, someone where you wouldn't let your children go near, that fear and all that kind of stuff, you know, because people didn't understand what the Rastafarian was. There was this general fear of Rastafarian in Jamaica, and Rastafarian was alienated from the rest of the population, and that's why Rastafarian had to move up into the hills and live on their own, away from the general population, you know. But in England now is completely different because of the environment of our liberties in England. We don't have no hills in England to run to, you know. I mean, Rastafarian in England suffered because of the fact that, one, Rastafarian was a black oriented thing, and Rastafari stood up for certain agendas which black people was advocating. You know, like I said, Rastafari, all what they wanted to do was go back to Africa.
Back to Africa, back to our roots. Those are the things I value. And being here in the UK doesn't encourage that type of liberty. So not only is my child a spiritual journey, because I'm one with the Creator, I recognize that despite what I've been taught as a child coming up, I realize that I am something. I am a queen.
I would say Rastafari to me is livity, is life, is truth, is righteousness, is love and light.
Rastafari means to me, it means life, it means liberty. No, it's not religion, it's a liberty. It means to me a good way of life.
Yeah, Rastafari beat this drum, you know, and the drum is one of the most powerful weapons of the Rastafari movement. It's a heartbeat, one drop heartbeat.
That is something that probably every Rasta you speak to will give a perspective on in terms of what is a liberty. It's a very personal thing. Some have like rituals where you hold a sabbatical order. Every Saturday is a Sabbath, or they may have prayer meetings they go to as a community. But for me, what the liberty is, it's really I would say that my liberty is in being productive. So therefore, by doing the works within the Rastafari community, that is my way of service, if you like.
Fundamentally for me, liberty is that you know, like often what Christians do, they go to church on Sunday and then from Monday to Saturday they just live however they want. So liberty for me is that you're kind of doing the Sunday thing all the time, meaning that you do as much as possible in terms of your actions are the same as your thoughts, which are the same as your heart.
The Sick Be Nourished project, providing care to our communities, we've sent equipment to approximately 12 different countries, because what it has done is highlighted the need. There is a need. There is a gap in our healthcare needs as Rastafari, but not only as Rastafari, and as a people, there is a need.
Again, the liberty is about your works. You know, your works speak for who you are, and this is the liberty of a Rastafari. By your fruits you shall know them.
The liberty is around how we dress, you know, carrying eye locks upon our head, looking at what I and I eat. And, you know, as Rasta, we are a peculiar people. So the liberty is one which is more aligned with nature, living holistically, eating natural organic foods, trying to redress some of the imbalances that we face living in this environment in our Babylon here.
Because when you cover your locks, you kind of keep that as your personal kind of liberty again, you know. But at the same time, you know, it's an individual choice. So sometimes I wear my locks out, sometimes I don't. Depends on the environment I'm going into. Sometimes I go through a phase in my life where I don't let it out at all, you know. So it definitely depends on the individual, you know. But again, when we was coming up in a Rastafari, in the fiat, sometimes you have to flash your natty, as them say, you know, because you're making a statement against Babylon's wrongdoings, you know. So, yeah, again, your locks is for protection as well. And in terms of your personal journey, I would say that it helps to keep you focused in your liberty as a Rastafari.
The herb, which is called, which is a plant in the Bible, which is called lamb's bread. Yeah, and when you talk about lamb's bread, why would we call it lamb's bread? You know. So, is it because it's fluffy like lamb? You know, and it's the bread that we partake in. So it's like that was a myth with the well, I don't know if it's a myth, but that's something that's said about the herb. But if you're talking about in this day and age, the herb is like the healing of creation. Henry Ford made a car out of hemp, and you can fuel a car on hemp, yeah? So when you're talking about marijuana, you're not just talking about a plant that people are smoking and getting high, yeah? You're talking about a plant that has a lot of resourceful tendencies to it. When you do partake in smoking the herb car, you know about respect fire bingy. If I got some ganja leaves around me, I don't smoke no herb. I just boil it up in a tea and drink it, my lord. But now, in a Babylon, I can't get the leaves, and I know it's my constitutional right to use the herb.
So in terms of maintaining that in this environment called England, it's very tricky, you know, because England is riddled with racism. You know, we had that coming up through school, and hence that fortifies me spiritually fortifies many people spiritually to hold on to a certain identity. And for us coming up, it was the identity to hold on to at that time was Rastafari, because it gave you a kind of resilience against the system and the onslaught of racism that was trying to remove you from who you really were and keep you disconnected.
Well, I mean, you can hold the liberty anywhere in the world, not specifically the UK, because people will be people no matter where they are in any form of the world, you know. The UK is no different from anywhere else. People will be people, and people will not understand, and then some people will understand, you know.
Oh, I can feel it when I rise early in the morning. I feel this vibe by taking a deep breath. Lord, this tells me I have life, and in order to preserve life, I must have Jah, for He is the giver of life, the giver of life. Jah is real. Whoa, yeah.
Look, upholding Rastafari Livity is everything to me. Really and truly, it is the basic principles I use towards, you know, manifesting a positive lifestyle and a positive liberty. This is my basic principle as being a loyal man with dignity and respect for others. Yeah, the teachings of Rastafari, though many don't know it or many might not seek it, this is what dictates, you know. It is all about love and righteousness.
Holding the liberty, I see it as a means of being royal in this life, because Rastafari Livity, for many, it's a rebellious form of showing off your character, you know, and for the humble set of people, they see it as the noble part of life.
So in everything that I do, you can see Rastafari Livity in everything that I do. In the way I prepare meals, in the way I live, the way I interact with people. So there's everything, it's just who I am. So there's no separation. Yeah, so Rastafari Livity, it's all about spirituality. That's the first and foremost thing that we deal with within Rastafari. It's all about being spiritual. It's not about being religious. Rastafari is not a religion. It's about spirituality.
Rastafari, I see it as something that we keep learning every day, you know. So I am a Rastafarian, but not the perfect Rasta, you know, because I still see where I make mistakes every day and where I should learn to be a perfect being.
It's very disturbing sometimes, you know, when we see certain people with locks that may be considered to be Rasta, and they are far from, you know, they do practice anything that Rastafarians practice, but yet and still they are called Rasta, and when they do certain things that are wrong, we get the blame. We Rastafarians get the blame, you know, for what a person with just dreadlocks may do. So then someone who kills a person and they have locks up on their head, and they're going to say, well, the Rasta man killed that man. No, innocent. We don't take innocent life. We are rebels, but rebels with a cause.
Rastafarians are seen as Rastafarians, but you can know by their conduct they're not true to what the original faith is. And I would say that the most enduring example of what that faith is true is Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie. He is the example And his code of conduct, his family life is exemplary. So these are the kind of lifestyles that I personally try and follow to keep a focus on my particular direction in life, you know.
Yeah, as Rasta, we need to move and groove and show, say, right now we're there and we're there to make a difference. We're not going home to go and sit down. I'm going home to do His Majesty's work. Princess Sahai was actually trained here in the UK. Haile Selassie, nurse Haile Selassie, during the time when His Majesty was here in Bath for that period of time when he came over during the Italian invasion. So, you know, this is something that Haile Selassie and Empress Menen was very involved in, looking at the needs of the people, the welfare of the people, setting up the Fistula Hospital, setting up various training for the development of nurses, doctors, to look out for the needs of our people.
I think repatriation is a central and fundamental pillar of Rastafari. And I think a lot of people often don't quite get what repatriation is about. And first and foremost, it's about repair. So it's repairing a breach in humanity caused by the enslavement of Africans and the trafficking across the Atlantic and the Indian Ocean as well. And it's about repairing a state of being, a state of dignity, a state of sanctification as well, which all tried to be stripped from African peoples with slavery, but never actually happened completely ever. So repatriation is about repair, first and foremost. And of course, what we know is that, for example, Chinese people, you don't call them yellow unless you're racist. Indian people, you don't call them brown unless you're racist, right? White people, you can call white people white, but white people have other names which are just as used as any other things like Europeans, British, English, la la la, right? African peoples, especially in the diaspora, are the only peoples where it's actually not racist to call them black, right? So why is that? What is it to do with the movement from being called not just African, but a particular group of people with a particular history and culture and all that kind of stuff, to being just called a colour, right? And imagining that just being called a colour is adequate for people to feel human. So for me, repatriation is not just about going back home, but it's actually creating a virtuous circle of life amongst Africa and the African diaspora, a circle between the diaspora and the continent, something where the good things come back as well, right? So people circulate, but they can come back as well. They don't just get trapped in one corner of a triangle, and neither does all the value and the money get trapped in one corner of the triangle. So repatriation to me is that on a deeper level, it's all about that. It's not simply about going back home. It's about recreating the world anew for Africans, so Africans can be truly human. And you know, if you're human, then you're in the world. You're in the world. And so that for me is what repatriation is about.
These are the days, you know, which man can think for himself now because the revelation come. Yeah? Jah reveal these things, man can think now. It's no more that a man a go kill you, right? Nobody can kill you again if you say Rastafari. First time them lock you up. If you say Selassie, if you say Selassie, me have prayers. Man say, who? A King James. You know what I mean? He starve you if you know say King James. But Rastafari come now and break all those things. You know? So it's I and I to see that. And we accompany it and don't believe so we still have to live in fear. We have nothing to fear. Rastafari.
The Most High guide me out. I'm coming in. Rastafari. Yeah. Traveling, you know. Well, we're flying up all at the airport. Addis Ababa. Me and my brethren and sisters. A taxi carry we got at the Gian Hotel. We arrange to get a transportation.